The colony ship Perseverance fell through the sky like a burning meteor. Inside the command deck, Captain Robert Mitchell held onto his chair as alarms screamed throughout the vessel. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, and the smell of burning metal filled the air. "We're losing the starboard engine," shouted Lieutenant Daniel Foster, his hands moving rapidly across the engineering console. Red warning lights flashed across every screen. "I can see that, Daniel," Robert yelled back over the noise. "Just keep us steady enough to land." The ship wasn't supposed to be here. They were meant to reach New Terra, a fresh colony world 3 light-years away. But when the main drive core cracked during a routine jump, they had no choice. Cavro 7 was the nearest planet with a breathable atmosphere. It didn't matter that the Zafrani Empire controlled it. It didn't matter that humans had only met the insectoid aliens once before. When you're dying in space, you take what you can get. The Perseverance hit the ground hard. The impact threw everyone forward against their restraints. Metal groaned and buckled. Emergency foam sprayed from the walls, sealing hull breaches. Then, finally, everything went quiet except for the hissing of leaking air and the crackle of small fires. Robert unbuckled himself and stood on shaky legs. "Damage report." Daniel checked his console. "Hull breaches in sections 4, 7, and 9. Life support is holding but weak. The drive core is completely dead. Sir, we're not flying again without major repairs." Robert closed his eyes and took a deep breath. 400 people were on this ship. Most of them were families, engineers, teachers, doctors, farmers. People looking for a new life. And 47 of them were children, ranging from little 4-year-old Sophie to 17-year-old James. "Get everyone to the main cargo bay," Robert ordered. "Do a head count. Treat the injured. We need to send a distress signal to Earth immediately." Engineer Lucy Bennett worked quickly at the communication station. Her fingers flew over the controls as she boosted the signal strength. "Message sent, Captain. But Earth is 3 weeks away, even if the fleet leaves right now." "Then we survive for 3 weeks," Robert said firmly. They didn't even get 3 hours. The Zafrani ships appeared in the sky like dark clouds. They were angular and sharp, looking like giant beetle shells made of black metal. 6 of them landed in a circle around the crashed human vessel. Robert stood at the main airlock with Tom Hardy, his security officer, and Dr. Marcus Webb, the ship's xenobiologist. They watched through the viewing port as the Zafrani soldiers emerged. The aliens stood on 4 legs with 2 upper limbs that ended in precise, claw-like hands. Their bodies were covered in a hard, chitinous armor that gleamed dark green in the sunlight. Large compound eyes dominated their faces, and their mandibles clicked together when they communicated. "Maybe they're here to help," Tom said hopefully, though his hand rested on his sidearm. Marcus shook his head slowly. "The Zafrani are a very rigid society. Everything has rules and protocols. Let me do the talking." Robert opened the airlock. The 3 humans stepped out onto the rocky ground. The alien sun felt too hot on Robert's skin, and the air tasted strange. The lead Zafrani moved forward. He was larger than the others with red markings on his carapace. His translator device clicked to life, producing mechanical English words. "I am Commander Thexral of the Zafrani Defense Force. You have landed on Imperial territory without permission. This is a violation." "We had an emergency," Marcus explained carefully. "Our ship was damaged. We need temporary refuge while we repair it or wait for rescue. We mean no harm to your empire." Thexral's compound eyes focused on something behind them. Robert turned and felt his heart sink. A group of children had come outside, curious about the aliens. Little Sophie held her older brother Charlie's hand. Emma and Oliver stood with a group of teenagers, all staring at the strange visitors. Thexral's mandibles clicked rapidly. He spoke quickly to his soldiers in his own language. Then his translator engaged again. "Those are your larvae," he stated. It wasn't a question. "Our children, yes," Marcus confirmed. "They're just curious. They won't cause any trouble." Something changed in Thexral's posture. His soldiers raised their weapons. Long, crystalline devices that hummed with energy. "In Zafrani territory we follow Zafrani law," Thexral announced. "When a new species enters our domain, their larvae must be eliminated before they mature into threats. This is our way. This has always been our way." Robert felt ice form in his stomach. "What? No, wait. You don't understand," Marcus stepped forward desperately. "Human children aren't like your larvae. They're—" "The law is clear," Thexral interrupted. "Soldiers, begin the cleansing. Eliminate the human larvae. All of them." The Zafrani soldiers moved forward. Tom drew his weapon, but there were too many. Robert grabbed his communicator. Everyone inside. Now. Get the children to safety. Chaos erupted. Parents screamed. Children ran. Energy weapons fired, scorching the ground. Lucy sprinted to her station and sent one final message to Earth before a blast destroyed the communications array. The message was simple and terrible. They're killing our children. Send help. 3 weeks away, Earth received the transmission. And everything changed. The cargo bay became their fortress. Captain Robert Mitchell stood at the center, surrounded by the 23 adults who had survived the first attack. Around them huddled 47 children, some crying softly, others staring with wide, frightened eyes. The Zafrani hadn't expected resistance. Tom Hardy and his small security team had bought them enough time to seal the heavy blast doors, but everyone knew it was only temporary. Dr. Marcus Webb sat cross-legged on the floor with his damaged tablet, scrolling through the Zafrani biological files he had studied before the crash. His hands shook slightly as he read. They think our children are helpless, Marcus said, looking up at the gathered adults. In Zafrani biology, larvae are completely immobile. They can't move, can't think, can't do anything but eat and grow. That stage lasts 2 years before they transform into juveniles. But our kids aren't like that, said Helen Carter, the ship's teacher. She had her arms wrapped protectively around 6-year-old Sophie. Exactly, Marcus continued. The Zafrani have no concept of what human children actually are. To them, eliminating larvae before they become threats is just practical. They probably think they're doing something reasonable. Reasonable? Tom Hardy's face turned red with anger. They're hunting children. I know, Marcus said quietly. I'm just explaining how they think. They made a terrible mistake based on their own biology. They assume all species work like theirs. Robert moved to the front of the group. His uniform was torn and burned from the attack. Our priority is survival. Earth got Lucy's message before the communications went down. The fleet will come, but we need to last 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Engineer Jack Morrison shook his head. Captain, we have limited food, water, and medical supplies. And those things outside have weapons designed to crack through mining equipment. These doors won't hold forever. Then we make them hold, Robert said firmly. We use everything we have. We know this ship. They don't. A voice interrupted from the back. We want to help. Everyone turned. 16-year-old Emma Davis stood up, her jaw set with determination. Behind her, the other teenagers rose as well. Oliver Grant, 15 years old and tall for his age. James Cooper, 17 and strong. Charlie Wright, 13 but brilliant with chemistry and numbers. Emma, sit down, Robert said gently. The adults will handle this. No. Emma's voice was steady. Captain, with respect, you need us. There are 12 of us between ages 11 and 17. We know every inch of this ship. We've spent months exploring during the journey. We know maintenance tunnels you probably forgot existed. Helen Carter stood up quickly. Absolutely not. Your children. Your job is to stay safe. Safe. Oliver stepped forward. Mrs. Carter, there is no safe. Not anymore. They're coming for us specifically. We're their targets. Hiding in here just makes us easier to kill. Robert looked at Tom Hardy, who was studying the teenagers with a tactical eye. Tom had been a soldier before joining the colony mission. He understood what was being offered. They've got a point, Captain, Tom said slowly. We're outnumbered at least 10 to 1. We need every advantage. They're kids, protested Lucy Bennett. We're not babies, James Cooper said firmly. The 17-year-old had been training for military service before the colony mission. I've had combat training. Emma's father taught her engineering. Charlie understands chemistry better than most adults. Oliver can fit through spaces none of you can. Marcus looked at his tablet again, then at the teenagers. Something shifted in his expression. The Zafrani don't understand human development. They think larvae can't fight back because theirs can't. What if we use that against them? Robert felt a cold weight in his chest. Everything in him screamed to protect these kids, to keep them locked safely away. But he was also a captain, and captains had to make impossible choices. If we do this, he said carefully, it's organized. It's controlled. No one takes unnecessary risks. We work in teams, adults and teenagers together. Understood. The teenagers nodded eagerly. Some of the younger children watched with admiration. Little Sophie tugged on Helen's sleeve. Will Emma be okay? She whispered. Emma will be fine, Helen said, though her voice cracked. She's brave. Robert gathered everyone closer. Here's what we do. Jack, you and Emma start mapping the maintenance tunnels. Find us routes they can't follow. Tom, you train James and any other teenagers who want combat basics. Marcus, you work with Charlie on anything we can use as weapons or deterrents. What about the rest of us? Asked Oliver. You become our eyes and ears, Robert said. You're smaller, faster, and you know the ship. You scout. You report. You run if there's danger. No heroics. We can do more than that, Emma insisted. Robert met her eyes. He saw determination there but also fear. She was just a kid trying to be brave. They all were. I know you can, he said softly. But let's start here. We have 3 weeks. We need to be smart, not reckless. Outside, they could hear the Zafrani soldiers cutting through the outer hull sections. The sound of grinding metal echoed through the ship. Time was running out. Tom Hardy checked his weapon and looked at James. Ever fired a gun, kid? Yes, sir. My father taught me. Good. Let me show you how this one works. The preparation had begun. The Zafrani thought they were hunting helpless larvae. They were about to learn a very different truth about human children. The attack came at dawn. Commander Thexral sent his soldiers into Section 7 of the crashed ship, expecting to find cowering human larvae hiding in the dark. Instead, they walked into hell. The first squad of 6 Zafrani soldiers moved carefully through the damaged corridor. Their compound eyes adjusted to the dim emergency lighting. Their weapons hummed, ready to fire. The lead soldier clicked his mandibles, signaling the others to spread out. Then the ceiling collapsed. An electromagnetic net, rigged by Emma Davis using spare power cables and mining magnets, dropped onto 3 soldiers at once. The metal fibers conducted electricity through their chitinous armor. They screamed in their clicking, rattling language and collapsed, twitching. Before the other soldiers could react, homemade explosives detonated at both ends of the corridor. Charlie Wright had mixed chemicals from the ship's laboratory, cleaning solutions, fuel additives, and oxygen canisters. The blast didn't kill, but it filled the air with thick, caustic smoke. The Zafrani soldiers couldn't see. Their compound eyes were sensitive, built for clear environments. The smoke burned and blinded them. They stumbled, firing randomly. From a ventilation shaft above, 11-year-old Sophie Mitchell watched through a small camera she had positioned. Her tiny fingers worked the communicator that Emma had given her. 3 targets down, 3 moving to Junction 4, Sophie whispered into the device. They're confused. In the maintenance tunnel below, Oliver Grant received the message. He was crouched with Tom Hardy and James Cooper, waiting. Oliver held a long metal pipe. James had a proper weapon from the ship's small armory. Tom had his service pistol. On my mark, Tom whispered. Remember, aim for the joints in their armor. That's where they're vulnerable. The Zafrani soldiers burst through the junction, still half blind from the smoke. Tom fired first, hitting one soldier in the joint between its leg and body. The creature fell. James took down another. Oliver swung his pipe hard at the third soldier's lower limbs, and the alien crashed to the ground. Go, go, go! Tom shouted, and they ran back into the tunnels before reinforcements could arrive. Commander Thexral received the report in his command ship and couldn't believe what he was hearing. 3 soldiers dead. 6 injured. And according to the survivors, they had been attacked by the human larvae themselves. Impossible, Thexral clicked to his second-in-command. Larvae cannot fight. It is biologically impossible. Nevertheless, Commander, that is what happened. The human young ones set traps. They used weapons. They coordinated attacks. Thexral felt something he had never experienced before, doubt. In all his years of military service in all the conquered territories, larvae had never resisted. They couldn't. They were mindless, helpless things waiting to grow. Send 2 more squads, he ordered. Full combat armor. They must have been aided by adults. Find them all. But the attacks continued. Charlie Wright set up simple chemical dispersal systems in 3 different corridors. When Zafrani soldiers entered, they were hit with compounds that specifically targeted their respiratory systems. The aliens had to retreat, gasping and clicking in distress. Emma and Jack Morrison worked together to sabotage the power systems in certain sections. They would wait until Zafrani patrols entered, then cut the lights completely. In total darkness, the aliens were helpless. But the humans had night vision goggles from the emergency supplies. Tom and James would strike quickly, then vanish before the lights came back on. Sophie became their most valuable scout. She was small enough to crawl through air ducts that adults couldn't fit through. She mapped enemy positions, counted soldiers, and reported everything through her communicator. The Zafrani never saw her. To them, she was just another shadow in the darkness. Oliver discovered that the ship's cooling system could be redirected. He and Emma managed to freeze one entire section of the ship to near zero temperatures. When Zafrani soldiers entered wearing their standard armor, they slowed down dramatically. The cold affected their insect biology. They became sluggish and easy to avoid. By the third day, the Zafrani had lost 18 soldiers. The humans had lost none. The remaining children weren't idle either. 10-year-old Michael helped Charlie mix chemicals. 12-year-old Grace worked with Sophie, managing the camera systems. 14-year-old Benjamin learned to set traps from Emma. Even the youngest children had jobs, carrying supplies, watching monitors, alerting adults when they saw movement. Captain Robert Mitchell watched from the command center they had set up in the cargo bay. Part of him was proud. Part of him was horrified at what necessity had forced these children to become. "They're learning too fast," Helen Carter said quietly beside him. She had tears in her eyes. "They should be playing, learning math, reading books. Not building weapons." "I know," Robert said. "But they're also alive. And they'll stay that way." On the fourth day, Commander Thexral listened to another frantic report from his soldiers. This time they had been ambushed in 3 locations simultaneously. The coordination was perfect. The tactics were sophisticated. And according to his surviving troops, they had seen the human young ones directly. One soldier's report was particularly disturbing. He claimed that a human juvenile, no more than 13 Earth years old, had looked directly at him before triggering an explosive. The young human's face had been calm, calculating, and absolutely fearless. Thexral sent a priority message back to the Zafrani High Command. His translator struggled to convey the horror in his words. "The human larvae are not like ours. They think. They plan. They hunt. We are not fighting mindless grubs. We are fighting an enemy we do not understand. The human larvae are fighting back and we are losing." The message was received. But by then it was already too late. The Zafrani had broken the one rule that united every species in the galaxy. And Earth's fleet was getting closer every day. 3 weeks into the crisis, the Zafrani High Command finally understood what they had done. The realization came not from their own wisdom, but from intercepted human communications. In a secure listening post orbiting a nearby moon, a Zafrani intelligence officer named Veldar decoded a transmission from Earth's approaching military fleet. The voice belonged to Admiral Richard Thompson, commander of Earth's global defense fleet. His words were cold, measured, and absolutely terrifying. "All ships, this is Admiral Thompson. Confirm Protocol Omega authorization. I repeat, Protocol Omega is authorized. Rules of engagement are as follows. No negotiation, no quarter, no mercy. They killed children. Human children. We will respond accordingly." Veldar's mandibles trembled as he forwarded the message to High Command. He had studied human culture during his intelligence training. He knew what Protocol Omega meant. It was humanity's response to extinction-level threats. It had only been authorized twice before in human history, both times against aggressive alien species that had attacked Earth colonies. Those species no longer existed. The Galactic Council moved faster than they had in decades. Ambassador William Reed received an emergency communication while his ship was still 3 days from Earth. The Council representative, a flowing, tentacled being called a Narration, appeared on his view screen. "Ambassador Reed, the Council demands immediate communication with Earth leadership. The Zafrani action on Kavros 7 was a terrible mistake. We must prevent escalation." William Reed was 60 years old, a diplomat who had spent his entire career promoting peace between species. But when he spoke, his voice carried none of its usual warmth. "A mistake," William said quietly. "Your member species systematically hunted and attempted to murder 47 human children. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." The Zafrani did not understand human development, the Martian explained desperately. In their biology, larvae are immobile and mindless. They thought they were following standard protocol for territorial acquisition. "I don't care about their protocols," William replied. "There are some lines you don't cross. Not ever. Not for any reason. Ambassador, please. You must understand the cultural context." "No." William's voice hardened. "You must understand our context. Every species in this galaxy, no matter how different, shares one universal truth. Children are precious. They are the future. They are innocent. You can wage war over resources. You can fight over territory. You can even enslave adult populations if you're barbaric enough. But you never, ever harm children. That's the line that separates conflict from extinction." The Martian's tentacles rippled with distress. "Ambassador, I must inform you of galactic history. 3 species have violated this principle in the past. The court hen who enslaved and worked children to death. The Nexular who consumed young beings for sustenance. The Drathmon who used children as weapons in their conquests. And where are those species now? William asked, though he already knew the answer. They no longer exist, the Martian admitted. The combined forces of the galaxy hunted them to extinction. But Ambassador, that level of response took decades and multiple civilizations working together. Surely Earth would not. Earth doesn't need decades, William interrupted. And we don't need help. Our fleet will arrive at Kavros 7 in 72 hours. Unless you can give me one good reason why we shouldn't turn that planet into glass. The transmission ended. The Martian immediately called an emergency council session. 200 species sent representatives. The chamber on the neutral station of Helios Prime filled within hours. The discussion was heated. Some species argued for intervention to stop Earth. Others pointed out that the Zafrani had indeed violated the most sacred law. A few quietly admitted they feared humanity's response more than they feared the precedent. An elder representative of the Korth, a species that resembled crystalline birds, spoke with a voice like chimes. The council must understand something about humans that our databases may not fully explain. Humans are unusual in the galaxy. Most species have some children. Humans devote enormous resources to each child. They protect them fiercely. Their entire society is built around the next generation. Many species value their young, another representative argued. Not like humans, the Korth continued. I have studied them. Humans will sacrifice themselves for children who aren't even their own. They create laws protecting all young beings, not just human ones. They consider harming a child to be the worst crime imaginable. The Zafrani didn't just attack a colony. They attacked the one thing humans will never forgive. Meanwhile, the human fleet continued its approach. 200 warships, the largest military response Earth had ever mounted. Every vessel was armed with weapons designed to crack planets. Admiral Thompson sat in his command chair aboard the flagship Vengeance, watching the tactical displays. His second officer, Commander Patricia Mills, stood beside him. Admiral, the Zafrani are sending surrender signals. They're offering to negotiate. Ignored, Thompson said flatly. Sir, the Galactic Council is requesting we hold position and allow mediation. Also ignored. Patricia hesitated. Admiral, I understand your anger. We all feel it. But if we do this, if we annihilate the Zafrani, we become something we've always said we're not. Thompson turned to look at her. His eyes were hard. Commander, I have 2 grandchildren. Ages 6 and 9. When I think about what those things did to the Perseverance children, when I imagine my grandchildren running through corridors while soldiers hunted them. He stopped, controlling his emotions. There are rules, Commander. Rules that even war must follow. The Zafrani broke the most important one. So we break them in return? Patricia asked quietly. Thompson was silent for a long moment. Then his communicator chimed. It was a transmission from the surface of Kavros 7. From the Perseverance survivors. From a 16-year-old girl named Emma Davis. And what she said changed everything. Admiral Richard Thompson stared at the view screen in his command chair. The face looking back at him was young, dirt-smudged and exhausted. Emma Davis was only 16 years old, but her eyes held the weight of someone much older. Admiral Thompson, this is Emma Davis, senior surviving colonist of the Perseverance. I'm speaking on behalf of all 47 children from the colony ship. Behind Thompson, the bridge crew fell silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing to watch. This was the girl they had come to avenge. One of the children the Zafrani had hunted. Go ahead, Miss Davis, Thompson said, his voice careful. Admiral, we know you're coming to help us. We know you're angry. We're angry too. Emma paused, and Thompson could see other teenagers gathered behind her. Oliver Grant, James Cooper, Charlie Wright. Survivors. Fighters. But we're asking you not to destroy the Zafrani. Thompson felt his jaw tighten. Miss Davis, those creatures tried to murder you. They hunted children. All of you. I know, sir. We killed 42 of them defending ourselves. We've seen what war looks like up close. Emma's voice cracked slightly, then steadied. That's exactly why we're asking you to stop. We've had enough death. Don't make us watch genocide happen in our names. Commander Patricia Mills stepped forward. Emma, the Zafrani violated the most fundamental law. They targeted children. You have every right to want justice. We want justice, not revenge, Emma replied. There's a difference. Thompson leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The fleet was 4 hours from Kavros 7. Every ship was ready for combat. Every weapon was armed. He had come here to deliver punishment, to show the galaxy that humanity protected its own. And now the very people he came to save were asking him to show mercy. "What are you proposing?" he asked finally. "Let them surrender," Emma said. "But make them pay in a way that matters. Make them take responsibility." The transmission ended. Thompson sat in silence for a long moment. Patricia watched him carefully. "Your orders, Admiral?" she asked. Thompson pressed a button on his command console. "All ships, this is Admiral Thompson. Maintain attack formation but hold fire. We're accepting their surrender. But on our terms." The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in orbit around Kavros 7 like avenging angels. 200 warships surrounded the planet. The Zafrani defense fleet, what remained of it, powered down their weapons and retreated. Commander Thexral stood in his command center, his compound eyes watching the human ships on his displays. He had made the worst mistake of his military career. He had ordered the death of human young ones, not understanding what they truly were. And now he would face the consequences. The surrender terms came through within an hour. They were harsh but not genocidal. First, every Zafrani military installation on Kavros 7 would be dismantled. Second, the Zafrani Empire would provide full compensation to every survivor of the Perseverance, including trust funds for all 47 children until they reached adulthood. Third, the Zafrani would personally resettle any human orphans created by their actions, providing homes, education, and care. But the fourth term was the most important. The Zafrani Empire would support the creation of new galactic law, to be called the Perseverance Protocols. And they would send a representative to testify before the Galactic Council about what they had done and why it must never happen again. 6 months later, Emma Davis stood in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council on Helios Prime Station. The room was enormous, with seating for representatives from 300 different species. Some were humanoid. Some were insectoid like the Zafrani. Some were so alien that Emma needed translation software just to understand their basic biology. She wore a simple blue dress that her mother had packed for the colony. Her hair was pulled back neatly. She looked like what she was, a teenage girl. But when she spoke, the entire council listened. "My name is Emma Davis. I'm 16 years old. 6 months ago, soldiers tried to kill me and 46 other children because they thought we were helpless larvae. They were wrong." She paused, looking around the chamber. "We fought back. We set traps. We ambushed patrols. We did things that no child should ever have to do. Some of you might think that proves we weren't really children at all. That we were already adults who could defend ourselves." Emma's voice grew stronger. "But that's not true. We were terrified. We cried. We had nightmares. We wanted our parents to protect us. We were children who were forced to become soldiers because we had no other choice." Commander Thexral sat in the Zafrani section, his mandibles still. He had been ordered to attend, to witness what his mistake had created. "The Zafrani made an error based on their own biology," Emma continued. "They assumed all larvae were like theirs, helpless and mindless. But that doesn't excuse what they did. Because there's one truth that should unite every species in this galaxy, no matter how different we are." She looked directly at the council representatives. "Children are precious. All children. They are innocent. They are the future. And they deserve protection not just from their own species but from everyone." Emma pulled out a document and held it up. "The Perseverance Protocols state that any deliberate harm to the children of any species will be considered a crime against the entire galaxy. Not just a crime against one civilization but against all civilizations. Because protecting children isn't just a human value. It's a universal one." The vote was unanimous. 300 species approved the Perseverance Protocols. It became galactic law within a week. As Emma left the council chamber, she found Captain Robert Mitchell waiting for her. He smiled proudly. "You did well in there," he said. "We all did," Emma replied, looking at the other teenage survivors who stood nearby. Oliver, James, Charlie, Sophie, and all the others. They thought we were weak because we were young. They learned that even larvae have teeth when they're cornered. But more importantly, they learned that humanity protects children. All children. Not just ours. Earth's reputation spread through the galaxy after that day. Humans were known as fierce warriors when threatened, but also as protectors of the innocent. Every species learned the most important rule about dealing with humanity. You don't harm their young. You don't harm anyone's young. Because humans had proven they would cross the stars to defend children, and they would burn worlds to avenge them. But they would also show mercy when asked by the very victims they came to save. The galaxy was better for it. And it all started because 47 children refused to be helpless, and one 16-year-old girl chose compassion over revenge.